When I think of games on the NES, my mind immediately goes towards extreme and absurd concepts such as tennis and golf. There aren't many games that exceed the limits for what would be considered today as an optional minigame in Stardew Valley, but the ones that do are seriously impressive for the time that they released. A big example being due to the technical limitations and arcadey feel games had back in the NES era, most exposition of the story is absent from the actual game, and to get any context to what you were doing, you had to read the manual. In the super futuristic hyperspace year of 2000, the Galactic Federation was experiencing an age of prosperity which involved trade using thousands of spaceships between planets. Space pirates would often raid these ships, and it would be too much for the Galactic Federation police to handle. So, when the space pirates raided a research ship containing an unknown life form, don't know why they never named that, I guess they skipped over it, the police sent a space hunter by the name of Samus Aran to the space pirates' base on the planet of Zebus to stop the pirates' plan of multiplying the Metroids to destroy the entire galactic civilization. Not much is known about Samus by most of the other characters in the universe. The manual even states that he is a cyborg, his entire body has been strengthened with robotics, giving him superpowers. Which was a nice way by Nintendo of keeping the twist at the end of the game a surprise. Personally, I find Samus's Varia suit cooler than Master Chief's and Doomslayer's suit, and Mother, I guess the monsters also count as characters. Their designs and names sounds like space variants of Mario monsters that have been zabloinked in the process. My favourites being Squeaked, Zila, Giga, and Zuma. Kraid and Ridley are two high-ranking members of the Space Pirates and act as the mini-bosses you have to beat before the final boss, Mother Brain. Their characters are explored deeper in future games, but as of the first game, this is basically the extent of what they offer. Ridley, Samus's now arch-rival, definitely being the more famous of the two, finally finding his way into the latest Super Smash Bros. Game after being deemed too big for the last four. The best part about Ridley's character is the fact that he is confirmed to be a hyper-intelligent creature capable of fluent speech, but just chooses to scream unintelligibly. The absolute mad lad. Mother Brain is an AI created by the Chozo race that turned against them when the space pirates invaded the planet Zebus. Of course, the form it takes at the end of this game resembles a brain in a jar, and that is because it is in fact a brain in a jar. The boss fight is less a fight against Mother Brain and more a fight against the entire fucking room, needing to avoid every flying object like you're on a Walmart Black Friday sale and you've just nabbed to the last flat screen. Yet, it's still not even the scariest thing inside a jar that comes to mind.
Michael! Don't leave me here! Michael!
Metroid is a Metroidvania, hence the Metroid in Metroidvania. I still think the genre should have been called something like a Pathfinder or exploration platformers, but FPSs aren't called Wolfendooms, so there's just no justice in the world, man. They play just like a 2D side-scroller, but with one big interconnected map and a focus on non-linearity with which way you progress, and upgrades that let you progress. Exploration is a lot better if you have a map open to help you. Some people might consider this like slightly cheating, but they did include a map in the manual, albeit not a good one, and if there were no technical limitations, they probably would have included a map just like they did in the remake Metroid Zero Mission. Hell, they even bundled a player's guide alongside Super Metroid, so I don't think the police will bust down your door for just looking at the location of a power-up or two. And yep, they've got the map up. Okay, you're going away for a very long time, that was a serious violation. Between the development of Super Mario Bros. And Metroid, the developers at Nintendo overcame coding limitations that allowed them to attain heights of game design the likes had never seen before. Going left. In fact, going left is the very first thing you have to do, and without that you can't progress in the slightest, immediately setting the tone for how power-ups affect your exploration. And whilst some platformers on the NES can feel slow with momentum issues, Metroid strikes a nice balance between making the character heavy, fast, and yet have a nice floaty and fair jump that covers quite a distance. I think the movement holds up surprisingly well. Obviously it gets better in future games, especially with the GBA remake, where options like ledge grabbing are added, which is why I recommend that you either play the NES version first if you plan to play all of the versions, or just stick to the remakes of 1 and 2 on the GBA and 3DS before moving on to Super Metroid. Getting upgrades for your suit is great as well. One of the benefits of having this big complex map with alternate routes is that you can practically choose how much you want to play. To some people, the objective of Metroid is to play as little Metroid as possible, meaning that all they would have to do is unlock missiles, beat the 2 mini-bosses and be off to Mother Brain, as that's all that's necessary for completion. However, options are available. The Ice Beam is great for freezing enemies and then using them as platforms. If you're struggling at one of the bosses, the Varia suit reduces damage by half, the Screw Attack lets you beat enemies whilst moving and is good for invulnerability, and so on. On my playthrough of Metroid 1, I only collected 1 extra energy tank, so I didn't realise it at the time, but when I played through Metroid 2, when I collected every single energy tank, it is an absolute game changer, and it gives you just as much of a fighting chance as Death Defiance in Hades, for example. Visually, I mean, it's an NES game, so some things do look a bit odd and blocky, but they did the best job they could have. Although the monster design is solid overall, and the environments accurately display what they were going for. They also did a very good job on the colour palette considering. Each zone looks aesthetically pleasing and definitely looks miles better with rapidly shifting colour palettes than if it were to have the same colour scheme throughout, like if it were on the Game Boy, wink wink nudge nudge. Despite the soundtrack to Metroid being super condensed, every song is iconic and memorable in their own right, even if the majority of people would recognise it from Smash Bros rather than the actual game. The main theme sets the tone of exploration, space and horror immediately before suddenly shifting into this beautiful descending melody that most people probably missed because they were pressing A to start the game faster. Each of the 5 zones express these themes through the music. Brinstar starts with this big adventurous introduction at the start of your big new adventure. Kraids' Hideout has one of the most technically impressive songs on the NES, which sets a tone for the more elite and more difficult enemies you'll find in that area. Norfair is dissonant and lonely, which is perfect because you'll be getting lost like a dumbass constantly. And Ridley's Hideout kind of sucks. At least Tourain's theme is scary and lab-like, which perfectly sets up the final boss. The ending escape sequence also has this really carefully crafted theme representing the mental state of both Samus and probably the player as well. As you get the flashing message telling you to escape with the bomb ticking down in the background, the song is intense and panic-inducing, but then about half a minute in, as you're climbing upwards, it shifts into a Kid Icarus sounding major key as a sort of heroic hope-inducing theme, when you realise, oh yeah, I guess I won. The sound effects also slap as well, being the birthplace of the original item acquired jingle, alongside housing more typical jumping and firing noises. For the time, this game was exceptional. As of right now, it's pretty close to that, but suffers quite a bit from what I like to call old game jank. Stuff that wouldn't be found in games today, as the philosophy of game design has shifted away from the replayability that was demanded from quarter-hungry arcade machines and short home releases that wanted to stretch out game length through artificial difficulty, as opposed to the amount of content that was included within the game. Metroid is a super impressive foundation for not just the Metroid series, but countless games that precede it. There's a reason why it's called a Metroidvania, and not a Brainbeakervania, even if Brainbeaker was made a year earlier, includes roughly the same style of gameplay, and was made by, Enix, as in the Dragon Quest blokes. Sucks to suck, I guess. And yeah, as it holds up today, Metroid gets a 3 out of 5. Thank you for watching. Please follow me on Twitter, Twitch, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for absolutely nothing to happen because of you doing so. I just like seeing the funny number go up. If you want to suggest a game for me to review next, please leave a comment below so I can read it and then review something else instead.